All good, man. No worries. Right on time. Um, we're just coming from we call them community spotlight videos, but it's just small businesses here local to Brighton, Michigan. We sit in once a month, and we just filmed what's going to be our April one. So just a day of content, and no,
Cool.
right on time, man. How was your weekend?
It was good. Not like traveling across the state, so that was nice. Like, I like doing adventures, but it's also nice to be able to like have a low-key weekend every now and then. So
I can't tell you the last time I had a low-key weekend, purely just from like a real estate standpoint. Like, life's been crazy over the past 2-3 years, so I'm right there with you. The second that we get a weekend of nothing, my wife will look, and we're both running and gunning 100 miles per hour, but she'll look at me and go, "Did we do anything this weekend?" No.
that's great.
So, right there with you. So we're recording now. Let's just get right into it. Again, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. So for the viewers, let's talk about what you were doing just before your transition to Oregon. And I'm sure there was maybe what you were doing professionally until Men Who Lead. But what was Thomas's life, 3, 4, 5 years ago? What were you doing just before Oregon?
So I just recently located within the state to Redmond, Oregon, but previously I was in Eugene. I spent 7 years as a teacher. I taught PE, coached football and wrestling, and that gave me a chance to connect with hundreds, probably thousands of different kids and understand how kids learn, how they enjoy, how to get a yes out of them. When maybe, they're coming into PE and they don't want to do something, but it's for the best for them. It's in their best interest. And so, both my work with Dads Who Lead, a lot of my teaching style has helped me develop as a coach, helping dads, because I spent so much time with kids and I spent so much time being a coach that it's allowed me to really connect on both sides of the coin.
I've never even thought about that. So I was a camp counselor, when I was 20 or 21. And at one point in time, I was managing 60 kids and 20 counselors. Wow. So when it came to psychology or working with individuals, that was a crash course in dealing with so many different unique personalities and characteristics and all these things. And I don't necessarily do it consciously, but I kind of do it subconsciously. Every parent has their interaction with their kids, and they know how to deal with their kids. But just because they're great at one or two of their own dependents does not necessarily always correlate to a broad spectrum of a demographic. And I've never thought about that until you just said it. So over those years of teaching, could you put a number on it? How many kids came across, your class?
Let's do a quick,
Hundreds?
Yeah, it'd be easily, so if it was 6-7 years, per trimester, I'd have, let's say, an average of 30 kids times 5, so 150, so per year, 450 kids. But then a lot of those kids repeat. But yeah, definitely in 4 figures as far as the amount of kids that I interacted with.
So do you, and let's before we go any further, let's talk about Dads Who Lead. What are you doing now? Who are you working with? And what's the ultimate, I know there's probably a lot of goals with the individual that you're coaching, but what are we doing? What's the focus, and what's the end all goal of what we're trying to accomplish?
So I saw a big gap as a teacher. My life calling, even since I was probably about 20 years old, was to help young men and women become men and women. And as I grew through teaching and grew myself, I saw that we're launching kids into adulthood, and they don't always, often they don't have the skill set to be successful. There is a stat in the 2020 census, 52% of adults 18 to 29 are living at home with their parents. So I'll say that again, because a lot of people are like, wait, that was what? 52% of adults 18 to 29 years old in the United States, according to the U.S. Census, are living at home with one or both of their parents. And so I believe that the connection with the dad and that leadership and his ability to help guide his son or daughter into the correct, not the correct, but decisions and actions that serve them is the greatest catalyst to help them make that jump. So people ask me, like, what is the overarching goal of Dads Who Lead? And it's a very heavy, intense goal. And most men hear this and are turned off. Most men hear this and say, I don't know how that's possible. That's not for me. I already am that. How can that be a target for somebody? But the goal is simple, and that is to help dads become trusted and revered leaders within their home.
And a byproduct,
Yes.
their community. And that touches more individuals. And it's so if that's their response, and I'm just kind of working through what I'm currently doing, we have this board in one of our offices that says, get your mind right. And every single time I say that to somebody, majority of the time, their initial response is, my mind's right. And I wonder if, and I think that's a red flag. Well, no, my mind's not perfect. I can always evolve. I can always perfect my craft and the things that I'm doing and how I'm impacting other people or my business personally, professionally, so on and so forth. So how often are you getting responses with, no, I'm already doing that. I'm good. I know I'm leading the way that I need to be leading when you're having these conversations. Is it often?
Yeah, it depends on the level of ego, and it depends on the level of willingness to open the heart to a deeper conversation. But I have, like, pretty often, sometimes people will be overt and be like, oh, well, I'm good. Like, I'm better than 95% of dads. They're comparing themselves. It's kind of just like in your world, the financial, right? Like, the financial status of 70% of our country is really, really poor. And I don't mean poor in the sense of not having money, but poor in the sense of, like, the skill set and the awareness is not there.
Yeah.
So in the same way, there are a lot of dads, yes, who are absent. There are a lot of dads that put in effort, a little bit of effort, and there are a lot of dads that put in a lot of effort. And my goal is to help the dads that put in a lot of effort make that effort as efficient as possible, because my experience as a dad, my son's 15, there's been plenty of times where I put in a lot of effort, sweat, tears, emotional energy, and I was truly just going in the wrong direction. So I want to help dads make decisions and take actions that are going to help move them and their kids towards the goals that they're looking for.
Yeah, just the right things, the right direction, and having or being somebody that has this great perspective, that's been probably considering this project for a long time, honing skills. It's not necessarily about perfecting skills, but honing skills. You make me think of something, and I think Gordon Ramsay said it. There's someone British, and they called an individual a busy idiot. And I think a lot of people in this world are kind of busy idiots. They think that they're doing all these things. No, I'm being productive. I'm doing the right things. But they're doing it in the wrong avenues, or they're kind of in the wrong direction just slightly. And it's more or less a course correct. So to your point, you're kind of looking for the individuals that are putting in a lot of effort, but maybe effort not in the right avenues that should be leading their kids in the truly right direction. And if anything, it's just perspective. It's perspective and giving people the skills that now you can actually apply to those relationships and help those kids with direction. I think of another quote. Don't make your kid's life too hard by making their childhood too easy.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of parents, busy idiots, give, and they're not giving them the skills that will ultimately benefit their life until the day they die. And they're subsidizing the input of skills with giving monetary things, gifts, vacations, time. And that's not a bad thing, but it's really making sure that you're giving those kids the actual buildable skills to get them from 1 year old to adolescence and beyond. Because the fact of the matter is me and you are not going to be here forever. So giving these individuals the right skills moving forward is imperative. So I know that probably doesn't encompass everything, but what are your thoughts on that? Am I tracking on that a little bit?
I had a presentation this past weekend, and we had a couple kids in the audience who come up, and we got a big string that's about 10 meters long. And we say, okay, this represents the child's life. And the first thing we say is like, okay, well, let's say, how old are you? Okay, average kid. Let's say you've got a child until they're 20, just to make it round numbers. Child until they're 20. Average age in that is 10. So the first thing we do is we cut off the first meter. That's gone. And then what year are they going to move out of your house? Say 20. Cut that off. So the back 80 meters are gone. These are all times, and we have a tremendous influence. And I think a lot of times it's often lost on parents how powerful the influence of a childhood can be on the trajectory of the rest of our kids' lives. So we're down to this 1 meter section. It was 10, now it's just like this 10% window. And I asked, okay, how much of this time are you going to be asleep? So boom, take off another 30 centimeters. How much of the time that you're awake are you going to be at school doing schoolwork? Let's say another of that, let's say half. So we're down to about like 30, maybe 40 centimeters left of free time as a kid. And like, okay, of this time, how much of this time are you going to be with your friends doing something else away from your parents? And how much of it is actually going to be meaningful time with your parents? Probably at best, let's say half of that time is going to be spent with family, and that's pretty generous. And so you're left with just like this very short window that we have as parents to make an impact on our kids. It's going to affect the rest of their life. And when we're in it, it can feel like, well, the days are really long, and there's a lot of time, and it can be sometimes even feel exhausting. But being very intentional and tactical and strategic with how, not just what we do, but the intentionality and willingness to connect and listen and ask the right questions. If you're following Chris, you're familiar with, getting coached on different areas of your life. And the theme that pops up with great coaches is asking the right questions. And I believe that dads, we are one of the greatest coaches for our kids that they will ever have through their life. And a lot of that is learning how to ask the right questions in the right way to guide them to make the decisions that are going to serve them the best.
My mind goes to this. One, is there an excuse that parents are making based on that time? Because when you actually break it down, my mind kind of went out there to think, wow, I never really thought about the narrow window. And I know the saying, you can teach an old dog new tricks. I don't necessarily always agree with that in some capacity, but we have truly a narrow window. So do parents think that window is bigger than expected?
Yes. It feels, when you're in it, it's like when you're waiting for a doctor's appointment and you're sitting there in the office. It's like, all right, we're gonna call you in 20 minutes. You're like, 20 minutes? This is gonna feel like forever, because you're sitting there trying to find a magazine that you're entertained with. And depending on how we parent, if our parenting experience isn't fun, that's how it can feel. And like, is that productive? Is that a productive use of time? What if you're playing baseball for 20 minutes? What if you're throwing the ball? What if you're throwing the football or playing a game? How much quicker does that go by, and how much more impact does it have? So dads that go through and like fully embrace our program, they learn how to just make an impact, but also make the process fun, which makes, you know, the more fun we have, the easier it is.
Does that lead into, and we spoke about this a little bit a few days ago, does that lead into an and parent? You know, we can work on and complete that sentence, you know, use some of those adjectives. You know, what are we looking for in a dad that can be fun and, or, you know.
Absolutely. That's like a great segue. So one of our big philosophies is we want to have fun with our kids and hold high expectations. And there's this myth that if you're holding high expectations, you're not the fun dad. You're not out there with a smile on your face and like making things happen. You're the one that's like, hey, is your schoolwork done? Okay, now you can go. Is this done? Is, you know, like going through the checklist. I have a quiz, and the archetype that's often, and I was this archetype before I went through a journey and transformed myself through my own struggles. The archetype is the admiral, and the admiral likes to have structure, likes to have tasks done, likes to have performance. And as kids, it's critical that they perform, but it's also critical that they have fun. And the myth is that if we're having fun, we're not going to have as high expectations. But the truth is, if we're having fun while we're like hitting targets, our expectations can actually go up. And they go up, I shouldn't even say expectations, performance. Because ultimately, what we want is not a checklist to get done, but what we want is for our kids to be able to perform and execute and be able to accomplish tasks and goals. So as we work on our own leadership and our own communication and our own ability to connect and enjoy our time with our kids, they'll intuitively pick up what we expect as dads, and it's going to be based off of what we do for ourselves. And that's just going to raise their own standard in their mind of what they expect for themselves, which is going to raise their ceiling.
I don't want to simplify it as simple as good cop, bad cop, but do you think that parents are imposing one of those two roles on themselves and not incorporating an and in there?
Yes. There's
Go ahead. All I was going to say, and do you think those dads specifically are, you know, what role are they trying to play? Bad cop? To be that authoritative figure? And then at the tail end of that, and we can get to this later, but on the tail end of that, where do you think that that's rooted from? Where were we taught that? And I'm sure you kind of think that, well, maybe you don't even want to focus in on the past or the history, but retrain somebody. And it's probably a lot of what it is that you're trying to have these conversations with, to retrain maybe somebody how they're approaching parenting. But where do you think that that's ultimately rooted from? So again, you know, what role does the dad play in his mind that you're kind of seeing? Why is that? And then where do you think that comes from?
Typically, great question. Often, I see the dad taking the role of, like, hey, I need to make sure things are getting done. And I make sure, naturally, dads want to help their kids be uncomfortable or be comfortable being uncomfortable. And naturally, the mom wants to have their kids be comfortable and relaxed and at ease, maybe, you know, making breakfast, putting lunches together, taking care of laundry, rides, things like this. This really is rewarding to the feminine spirit. The masculine spirit is often rewarded when we reach our kids in a way that's challenging to them. And we want to see our kids perform. We want to see our kids be ready for the next step. And I do see often this discrepancy between, you know, where the mom is often the good cop and the dad is the bad cop. And there can be a successful combination of when we understand where our kid is at to be able to raise that expectation. I don't know if I completely hit what your question was.
Yeah, I think you did. But I think a good thing to transition from is when you're having these conversations, Um, do you try to reverse engineer these conversations? And I guess there's a bunch of people that you're going to have conversations with, an individual that's very proactive, maybe like myself. I have no kids. So do I get value from these conversations? 100%. In how I approach, young individuals. We have nieces and nephews. I interact with them on a constant daily basis. Am I going to be the bad cop? Probably not. But do I have something to teach them? And I think that's also very valuable as well, is a lot of people believe they live in this little box. No, I can't impact Thomas. No, I can't impact Thomas's kid. Well, no, you have a massive impact on the people in your sphere, your community. I see somebody at a Starbucks. I can have impact on that person positively or negatively. So, is that something that you even try to address on as well? Well, one, end in mind. When you're approaching these conversations, where do we want the kid to become? Yes. And do you reverse engineer from that, or is it foundational pieces that any parent or any individual can take away from this?
Yeah, I love that end in mind. And the end in mind often, people have different end in minds. Okay, there's and none of them are wrong. It's just different mindsets around what's important to each of us. There are parents who my big thing is I want my kids to be happy and enjoy childhood. There are parents that I want my kids to have skills when they leave childhood to be independent and grow. There are parents I want to enjoy my time being a dad. I want to have a lifelong connection with my child. I want to have a connection to where when he's or she's 23, I'm still seeing them. They're still coming over for dinner. We're still having experiencing a nuclear family and experiencing the connection that is critical to them. Gosh, so many good questions. I know I'm kind of going sideways here, but that was the first part. What was the second part of your question?
I kind of forget, but another question just came to my mind. When you're talking about this end in mind, is there and you're probably going to say no, but my mind goes to this, and there's not a right or wrong answer. And I think that parents think about, these things, the busy idiot mentality. I want my kid to be a good football player, to be a great singer, to be an artist, where I kind of break a few things down to where I would like my kid to be. Confident, ability to make a decision, and self-awareness, and patience, and we could probably elaborate on that. But do you believe that there's a right or wrong answer for an end in mind, or is it more of a foundational piece to maybe capture some of those positive characteristics, so we're leading our kids in the right direction to wherever they evolve to, where these parents again, we grew up in a time where it was go to college, graduate, get a job, get married, buy a house. And I think that's kind of evolving. So when you're starting to lead these individuals, is there a right and wrong answer? Or do you believe that from your teachings and your coaching, it's a foundational piece that's translatable to all different kids and personalities?
Great question. First, every kid is really different. Every kid responds differently. So I do believe there's a foundational understanding of how to communicate well with others and to lead others. And leading others in a family is a lot different than leading somebody at a workplace or leading somebody at a sports team, because on a team, whether it's a sports team or a team at work, you have one common goal. You have one common objective that you're meeting as a group. And everything is focused on that. We might have different strengths, weaknesses, but we're moving towards whatever that is. And in a family, we now have all these different, I call it ships. Everybody, as you grow up, your ship is, and you're 4 years old, your ship is right next to your parents' ship. And it's kind of sheltering, if there's a heavy wind, right? The upwind boat kind of shelters that downwind boat and makes it a little easier. And then as they grow, their ship gets further and further, and maybe it starts to divert and go on its own course. So my philosophy is to help kids to be able to steer their own ship, to be able to make their own decisions. And sometimes they're gonna mess up. they're gonna crash and burn and capsize, and they got to figure out how to like pull everything back in together. But that's going to help them get ready. That's going to help them have a skill set and confidence that if something doesn't go right, they're able to figure it out. Because the worst thing that can happen to somebody is not the worst thing that can happen to somebody. The worst thing that can happen to somebody is have something bad and them feel completely helpless, unable to take care of things on their own, unable to deal with the situation. If we have the confidence that we can, like, all right, I've been through something challenging before, I can do this again, you'd be impressed with how much you can do it.
Let's go back to the ship. How much of the problem is those parents are holding on to those lines and not letting the kid's ship get away? No, you're on my path too, you know. And that goes into another thing I put down, and that's exactly where I was going with. I think that sometimes goals are imposed on those kids, and that's holding the line. No. I told you had to be this. I told you had to be that. How often is that the problem?
I think it's improving. I think I see parents on average more willing to say something like, hey, what sport do you want to play? And there's a balancing act as parents when we look at how much line we give our kids. Because if we give them too much, this is gruesome. There's a time where you give somebody too much line, they'll hang themselves. Right? But if you give them not enough, they're not going to learn how to do anything on their own. They're just going to be very, very plugged in.
And that's a great point. Is some parents just drop the line. Good luck. See you later. And some parents hold it too tight. And I think that if I had to put, my own personal experiences into it, it was a very fluid line. Oh, see you later. Oh, come on back. Oh, see you later. Oh, come on back. And allowing us to live, make decisions, and that's, I wrote this down as well, choices and decisions. I think that too many people, and parents do as well, believe everything is black and white. It's either right or it is wrong. And I think that a decision is just a decision until you get to the next decision. It doesn't make it right or wrong. And I think that too many times when we do make a decision, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we do make decisions, you might be ridiculed for that decision based on somebody else's perspective. And I think that is also very dangerous. It's more of a shame than it is an empowerment. So then the individual, what's going to happen when you're 13 years old or 12 years old? You're going to be questioning on making that next decision. And I think that should be the empowerment of it. I don't know if I put that into criteria, but confidence, self-esteem, ability to make a decision. I think that too many people, even me included at 25 years old, I'm not 25 now, but when I was, hey, mom and dad, this is what's happening. What do I do? And we're told this is what you should be doing versus I'm going to give you some facts. I'm going to give you some perspective, and you need to make that decision. And again, it's not right or wrong. It's purely a decision.
Yeah, the decision is really big, and kids having confidence and making their own, and seeing that there is this black and white paradigm, and there's a archetype, and I was one of the archetypes like this. Again, before I rewrote my story with my son, okay, I want to do the right thing. I want to make sure things are as dialed in as perfect and in strategy, and what's the right decision here. And the fact is, a lot of times the decision that we make is going to have strengths and it's going to have weaknesses. And sometimes there's no decision that feels really good, but there's a best decision or a decision that works best for us, that serves us the best at the time. And then we make it and we go on. And often I see, probably the scariest thing that I'm seeing now is that kids are not willing to make decisions, and their decision is to wait and to defer and to I'll think about it, and days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years, and there's no action, there's no change, there's no momentum, there's no growth. And without having that initial courage and confidence it can be challenging. And that's something I would encourage parents to be mindful of, is just really digging into your kid's heart and being willing to hear. That's probably the biggest thing that I work on with dads, is developing the skill of being able to hear what's in your kid's heart and where they're at and where they're wanting to be. Because a lot of kids with, so much technology and the conditioning that we get in school, of kids get really good at school. Do an assignment for someone, turn it in, get points. To get another assignment, turn it in, get points. They get great at, like, learn this material, do it, report back. And that's a cycle that we got into. But very rarely do we find a kid who said, what is it that you want to do this quarter? What's your goal? Well, I play this volleyball. I guess I want to do something with that. Okay, what is it? Well, it's fun. I guess, I don't know. I never thought exactly what I want to accomplish with this specific opportunity. So creating a pattern, and in my coaching, I talk a lot about cycles, creating a pattern or a cycle for our kids where they're evaluating where they are, where they want to be, what are the blocks to help them get there, and how do they take the actions to start moving there.
There's a lot to break down right there, and don't mean to cut you off, but back to making decisions or not making decisions and looking for that more information time. And this goes back to your statistic. So what's the statistic one more time? 2020 census,
52% of adults 18 to 29 are at home with their parents, living at home with their parents.
And they wake up 30 years old and they go, shit, what have I done? Or what haven't I done? This goes into asking better questions, or asking the right questions hand in hand. I can ask you, I don't want to say stupid questions, I can ask you questions all day long, but are they the right questions? And it always makes me think of this. Seek to understand versus seek to be understood. And I don't think that many humans actually take the time to really understand, who they're talking to, or their perspective of why you're coming from where you're coming from, or asking the right questions to get to where we want to go. Because a parent can think all day long, an individual, a boss, a significant other. We can have a perspective of where our destination is going to be, but does it actually align with that individual as well? That's the question. So what are some, and we don't have enough time for this, but what are some questions that maybe some individuals, whether it's a boss, a spouse, or a parent, that can be asking to really get a kid's or an individual's why, purpose, direction in their heart, in their mind, and in their soul?
Absolutely. That's a great question. The worst, I'm going to start with the worst one, and this is the most common one.
Do that.
How was school today? What did you learn? They're super surface layer, and sometimes even just allowing yourself to dig into something that's deeper, like the kids really enjoy, could tell you more about the kids.
Real, I'm going to interject real quick, I want to tell you what my thought is, because you made me just think about it. And there was this family that raised it was 4 girls, 3 CEOs of big Fortune 500 companies, and 1 crazy brain surgeon. And they went to these parents and they were like, what'd you do? They're like, dude, we don't know. But we always sat down for a family dinner and created that connection and that opportunity to have an open conversation and dialogue. And 2, our go-to question was, how did you fail today? How did you fail today? And what did you learn from that failure? And how are we not going to repeat it? And obviously it's a very open-ended question, but hey, maybe I got a D+. Hey, maybe I, didn't do enough pull-ups in gym. Whatever that failure might be, addressing it to say, okay, cool. How did we get to that point, and what could we have done differently? And start back up. Sorry to cut you off, but start back up. What is? Go for bad questions.
Yeah, I love that. That how did you fail, or fail big, and that's a big thing. I've got a whole podcast with Aaron Velke on that, on the process of and the conditioning we get to failure being bad, and that's just that reframing reframing failure can make a big difference. But depending on where you're at with your son or daughter, I think of it as opposed to an exact question. I think of it I'm trying to echolocate exactly where. So I've got 3 kids. I've got a 15-year-old son, a 3-year-old daughter, and a 1-year-old daughter. So my communication with my 1-year-old daughter is very light, because she's got about like 3 or 4 words that she says. But with my 15-year-old son, it's maybe on a different level. But I'm on my ship and my path, and my number one job is to make sure that I'm steering my own ship in a good direction. Because if I go and I crash my ship, I can't serve my family the way that I want to. My son's on his own ship as well, and he's, if I don't know, have you spent any time on boats?
Yeah, I grew up on a small chain of lakes here in Michigan, so
Perfect.
A lot of time on boats.
So something that you do when you're on a boat, for your listeners, if you've spent time on boats, is setting a fix. When you set a fix, you're like, okay, that tree or that barn, whatever it is on the horizon, like that is what I'm aiming for. And when you do that, whether you're on a sailboat or a speedboat or a kayak, your direction's going to be pretty straight. When you don't have a fix, it's going to be like, I know I'm going that way, but you kind of get distracted, and so your boat's going and all of a sudden you've traveled 4 times as long as somebody that's just set the fix and gone on a straight path. So when I'm echolocating with my son, I'm asking him, like, what's important to you right now? What things are you enjoying? And then once I get into what he's enjoying, I don't just stop there. Okay, this is kind of going back to, and he's a little younger, but most people are familiar with this and can relate. Minecraft is a kid's game. It's a kid's video game where they build things within this world. And it's easy to see something like Minecraft and be like, I have 0 interest in video games. I have 0 interest in Minecraft. I don't care about the characters and the chests and like what's inside all that. But there are treasures underneath the surface that we can dig for. So you'd be like, oh, cool, Minecraft. Like, what kind of characters, what characters are in that you like? What is it that you like about Minecraft? And then you start to learn about the basic vocabulary of this world, and your kid's starting to connect with you and open up. And pretty soon you start to understand why your kid likes Minecraft, what it is about the creativity, what it is about the freedom, what it is about the exploration that's like triggering something in his heart, so that when you have something else that you're wanting to do or teach him or serve him, go on a trip, you have an idea in your mind of who your kid is and what things he is that he enjoys. It's not just the Minecraft. What is it about the Minecraft? There are plenty of video games. What is it about that game that he's enjoying or she's enjoying? And how can I use that information to understand who he is and what he enjoys, to be able to connect with him and bring a life lesson without him maybe even knowing that it's happening?
I think that's and I want to go back to the fix on horizon. I think a lot of parents, and this is my perspective, will fixate on a horizon. You maybe work alongside their kid to get that fix, but I think it's important to have that conversation pretty consistently, monthly, weekly, quarterly. And I think that a lot of parents, and I'm not in that situation just yet, but from my perspective, when I was working with camp counselors or campers and the nieces and nephews, I think that kids are expected to choose that fixated path pretty early on in life, and are told not to change that path. No, you made this commitment. Well, it could serve you a purpose today, but it might not serve you a purpose tomorrow. So consistently having that conversation and helping somebody find that new fixated point so they're the most efficiently moving forward, consistently having that conversation and giving your kids, again, the empowerment to make a decision so they know. Because again, if that's the case, if we're shamed for making decisions or quote unquote failing, how are we going to get to the next decision? How are we going to go to the next decision? How are we going to make the next decision? And again, I think that a lot of individuals find that fixated path and believe at that point in time it's success or failure on that one thing. And me and you both can agree, we're early 30s. We can agree, us to our mid-20s, completely different humans. Us to our early 20s, we're completely different humans. And I think that a lot of those decisions are pretty fluid. And my perspective is a lot of individuals, not even just relating to how people are parenting, lock into decisions, stay into a job for 20 years that never served them a purpose, a marriage for 20 years that never served them a purpose. That needs to be a fluid conversation of where you're fixating your goals to, and giving those kids that confidence to say, okay, cool, I know where I'm going, but I also know that I can get off this path if I really need to at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's important, like that rope analogy, that how much rope we give our kids and how much freedom, depending on how old they are, their skill sets, their strengths, weaknesses. And as you're helping them or guiding them to set a fix or set a target, knowing that having the target in itself is a win. Because just like we talked about earlier, if we don't have a target, we're meandering and we're not going to make as much ground. But if for 3 months it's softball season and she's like, my goal is to become a better thrower or to raise my batting average by whatever, she's got a target. She's got something she's aiming for, and she's moving towards it for 3 months. She's not doing this. So if she gets to the end of softball season, it's like, all right, cool, I want to do drama or something completely different. Okay, cool. But at least, just reroute. But she's has the habit and the routine that she's going in a direction. She's moving towards something, and that she knows that whatever she's moving towards, she's going to be able to achieve or get closer to it. And that it's not about the goal, it's about the journey, it's about the path, it's about the sense of direction and confidence and the skills they have of moving towards whatever it is much less important than where they are ending up.
Boom. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about. And even just me, kind of light bulb went off. It's not about the destination. It's about what we're learning on that journey. And again, it does not matter what that destination is, but what is it building in those kids? Focus, discipline, work ethic. Those are all things that they're going to take throughout their whole life. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm a victim of this as well. And I don't want to use the word victim, but with short attention span. We have this short form content on our phones, and we get distracted every 30 seconds versus in a bigger picture, thinking about the destination, loving the journey, but realizing what that journey actually means for on the other side of the destination. Because again, we're always going to be working towards a destination. Yeah. And I think that's a very overlooked thing. It's not about the batting average. It's not about the drama club. It's about creating these phenomenal foundations within young kids. Focus, and we're only hitting on a few brief things, but focus, discipline, work ethic, that they're going to be able to translate to anything they do in their life. If you want to be a writer, you're going to be the best writer you can with those foundations. If you want to be an actor, you're going to be the best actor you can be with those foundations. Obviously, luck, opportunities do play kind of a role in that, but making sure your kid actually has those skills. And not just relying on your ability with your current skills, but also instilling those into them. That's the point. That's the whole point. I wanted to go this, and we're getting close to the end. Break it down, and we do not have enough time. Hence, why people that are more interested should just connect with you. But if you're giving advice and a little brief few sentences to a young individual that they can take away from this conversation, what is it?
A young individual, like a young man or woman that's maybe
15, 10 years old. You could even say, a 6-year-old, but 10, 15. What's this little snapshot from this conversation that they can take with it? They might be able to instantly apply to their life.
Yes. the big thing that I see for kids to have, I'm big on awareness. And I want kids to have an awareness that in school they learn to do tasks for others, and that's an important part of life. It's important to learn how to follow, but it's also important to learn how to ask ourselves, what is the actions, what is the result that we want, and why do we want that result, and what can we do to go out and create the reality that we want. And too often, candidly, in school, I feel that there's a lot of history and things taught around a result of the circumstances in the exterior world, as opposed to really embracing the power that we have as individuals to create our own reality. And people a lot of times hear like, what is that, magic or something? But like, the truth is, if we have a vision of who we want to be and the vision of the relationships that we want to have and the visions of the things that we want to create, and we're not gonna get there overnight, but we can become who we want to become. And being who you want to be has nothing to do with what you do. It has everything to do with how you are in the world and how you treat others and how you go after and take the things that you want in life, and not submit to this feeling of like, I'm just a result of the people around me. I'm just a result of my circumstances. I'm just a result of my genetic ability. It's easy as kids to see, like, especially when you're a kid, you see Jimmy. I remember this. I was not a good athlete in school, like when I was a kid. I didn't learn to ride a bike for a long time. I was on the lower teams. I was probably like the smallest kid in my class, and there'd be kids just like running, juke, and be like, wow, they make it look so easy. Like, that's just not who I am. I want to do that, but I'm not able to. And to this feeling like I am not enough. I am not the champion. I am not who I need to be to have success. And if you're in that spot and you're a kid, like, damn, I want to have something I don't. I want to have a girlfriend. I want to have a boyfriend. I want to be a star. I want to make more money. I want to have more freedom. Whatever it is that you're desiring in your heart, don't allow yourself to believe that you're a victim, that you're stuck where you are because of the cards you've been dealt. This world has so many opportunities, especially as a young person. As a dad now, I have a dad of 3, I have a wife that, like, all of them depend on me to perform. There's more pressure on me. There's more restrictions than even on me than as a kid in our early life. There's so many opportunities in the world. Just know the power that you have. Like, each of you, if you're hearing this, are an extremely powerful individual with the capacity to achieve things that you don't even know is possible yet.
Yeah, and it all starts with awareness. I think that even myself included, I'll look at an individual and go, hey, I want to be there. And I'll look at their strengths from what I see from social media, which is not always the reality. And I go, I need those strengths now. But no, it's all obtainable in honing in on your strengths to get where you want to go. And it all starts with awareness. My buddy, we were in Italy recently, and he kept saying, know thyself. And it's like a Pluto saying. And I think that too many people in this world do not know thyself. Yeah. They do not have the self-awareness to understand where they are, where they've been, and where they want to go. And they're molding their lives to a lot of people around them into thinking that that is their true direction. So, boom. The short answer of it is self-awareness, know thyself, and take a really, and we're talking about this in our Go Pod right now, is why, purpose, blah, blah, whatever it is. And I think that that's the most overlooked thing that people are not taking the time on. And then when I say my why, your why is different than my why. When I say my why, people are saying, that sounds like a good why. I like that why. That's not my why. I do want to make a lot of money. That's my why. And I think that's a little dangerous, if you ask me. So that's to a young person. What's that little blurb that you might give to a parent? A few sentences. They might be hitting this. Again, obviously, I think that the conversation, if you want to hear more, is reach out to you and have to start this conversation. But, what's that takeaway for these parents in a 10 or 15-year-old's life to give them just a little perspective or takeaway from today?
Yes, great question. Kids are craving to be listened to and understood. To really take the time to understand where they're coming from without any judgment or expectation of where they should go, without coaching or without saying what you should do, without saying what I would do, without saying, well, some of your options would be. Not to say that that's not another conversation to help them kind of like find it on their own, but just let it sit that you're fully taking on where your son or your daughter is and understanding every detail about what they're going on and what they're going through. Not only will this open up your child's heart to be able to share more with you, but it will equip you as a dad to be able to understand at a deeper level the challenges that your kids are facing so that you can guide them through those challenges. I often see this in school where as teachers we have an agenda and we have things and objectives that need to be met as a group that we're just not able to get in as deep with each kid of where they are. So as a result, we maybe get a little information then, okay, and this is what I need. But as a parent, you have the chance to really go deep into what it is that they're looking for, what it is that they're struggling with, and it will take so much pressure out of your relationship, and it will make things so much easier when your kid knows, like, okay, he gets it, he understands me. Because too often I hear this conversation, but Dad, you don't understand. But they don't understand that when you really understand and then you have expectations, it makes it so much easier. If it takes more time, it's not the quick fix. It's not the I told you to do this, so and I'm the dad and this is the expectation and this is how it's going to be. It's not that. It's like a deeper level of, and maybe, something shifts in your heart or something shifts in your expectations or something shifts in the direction of how you guide and lead based on all this intel and data that you're able to collect. But never overlook the value of gathering that information and that intel.
Yeah. Seek to understand versus to seek to be understood. And yes. I think that a lot of us as humans just want to be understood and want to be heard. And realizing that in a lot of the conflict that I might have in my life, I feel like I'm saying something, but it's not actually received. And I think that, again, one, ask the right questions, but truly understand that person's perspective. And it's not about maybe agreeing with them. You can always agree to disagree, but understand that person's perspective and truly hearing what they have to say. Last question I got for you, and this one's pretty deep, but when life is over, how do you want to be remembered?
I just want to be remembered as someone who helped others understand how to connect and lead at their highest ability. I'd like to have the people who embrace what I teach and specifically my own kids be able to create their own reality and their own peace in their heart. It's not to say, like, if you want to be a great basketball player, you can be LeBron James, because not everybody's going to be LeBron James. But you can create ability within yourself to block out not necessarily block out, but be able to reflect the exterior noise when needed. And like we've talked about, understand where you're going, who you are, the obstacles to get there, and move towards it. And that's between you and you. And that's understanding your own strengths and weaknesses and the ability to take action and not have the exterior noise impact your happiness and who you are.
All this starts with one conversation. All this starts with one question. And I think that even for me, I might be thinking something, and am I asking that question to my significant other? Am I asking that question to my parents? No. Or maybe yes or no in some situations, but I think that all these conversations start with one simple question. We don't know what that question is, but it obviously has to have a starting point into truly understanding an individual on how to connect better with your child, how to lead them in the right direction, and then obviously going back to that original statistic, 52% of individuals that are 18 to 29 are still living in the home. There's some details within the details that we could probably dissect on it for hours, and we just don't have that time. But making sure that those kids, in the short window that you have to mold and shape them, are going to change their life for their whole existence. That starts with one question, that starts with one conversation, that starts with one podcast, into thinking just a little bit differently. And to be completely honest, there are things that give me some perspective on this little hour phone call to say, wow, am I asking the right questions? How am I leading my wife? How am I leading my nieces and nephews? How am I leading the individuals within my life? Am I asking the right questions? The answer is probably no, Thomas. And how can I ask the better questions, the right questions, into being a better leader and bringing these people up with me? And that'll be a conversation to the end of time.
Yes, it's always a process for sure. Yeah. Love it.
Thanks for taking the time, man. I think that me and you, if I didn't have to leave, I would talk to you for another 3 hours. I gotta run. Thanks for taking the time. How can the people connect with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, so we're Dads Who Lead on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I have a Dads Who Lead community. If you're a dad, you're welcome to join that. And just request and let me know about your story. Also, I don't know how long until this is going to go live. I have a quiz for dads to understand your own personality and archetype as a leader and your own strengths and weaknesses, so you can have a better awareness of where you are and who you are as a leader, and how to leverage your strengths and bring awareness to your weaknesses. It's a free quiz, so you can head to dadswholead.com to take that, or I have that accessible in my links on all the social platforms.
Yeah, and I might contradict myself a little bit, but awareness, know thyself. I mean, you I don't think you can. It's like and again, I don't know your beliefs on this, but when the airplane loses oxygen, help yourself before you can help others. Yes. But having that awareness and realizing where you are, where the ship is fixated on moving forward, and a free quiz, free resources, YouTube. You can learn anything on YouTube, and probably, with that being said though too, consume the correct content and consume the content that's going to be the right for your direction, your path. Hence, these resources. So, Thomas, again, I'm sure we're going to talk for hours and hours and hours from this point on. So looking to see where the relationship goes and the conversation goes and your journey and your path. Again, thanks for taking the time, and we'll see everyone on the next one.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Catch you, man. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to use those like, comment, and share buttons below. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Pat Lotz Real Estate for more helpful home buying and selling tips. Want a free comparable market analysis? Scan that QR code on your screen or visit our website at www.patlotz.com and fill out the request form. There's lots to love in Livingston County.